All right, folks, we're down here again. This is early May, and temperature is really nice, but they're expecting a bunch of rain today in the morning and then tomorrow. So we'll see how much we get. We tend to get less rain than DC area does. But yeah, so we're going to be continuing working on the front porch and especially shoring up that poor foundation wall. All right, I wanted to give you a little bit of a perspective of the overall layout of the house and where we are at. So in review, this part of the first floor foundation is complete, sheathed, insulated, as well as this part of the flooring. And then there's a bunch of bays here that also have plywood and insulation in them. This is where the chimney was. Took that out a year ago. And this is where we are now. This little area right here. These PFAs are posts that are going to be supporting the stairway. And the landing was here about 3.5, 4 feet up. This is the existing porch, which will be converted into living space. So I have to put in a foundation here eventually. That's stage 3. So today we're going to be demolishing the old porch area that was in here. And preparing this cinder block wall right here is the one that's in really bad shape. So we'll be fixing up that. Here's the second floor plan. I had mentioned earlier I wanted to swap the stairs. Originally coming from the first floor up here, landing, and then up to the second floor. So the county said that it's fine. We can just make an on-site note when I reframe this so that we'll be swapping them. So this is coming up, landing, and then up to the second floor. Closet underneath. And yeah, everything should be good. Also, with respect to where we're at right now, this beam is in. These beams are in. This wall is framed all the way to here. This wall framed about to here. And this wall is framed over here. So all of these joists are in. And when I took out the roof, the 60% of the roof basically goes to about here. And so all this roof is gone. And now it's just a matter of removing all these joists to take the load off of these two beams so I can put in the new beams. Anyway, that's where we're at. All right, here's some more good stuff. So I'm taking apart these pipes. This is the repair from this winter. Here's the part I cut out. That's the burst. That burst through some pretty thick copper. But here's another joint that looks like it would have come apart at some point. Not a good sign when you see fresh solder coming out of a joint. Let me see if I can twist this. Yep. I can twist the joint, and I'm just amazed that that held water at all. Good times. Good times had by all. So going over the initial condition of this crappy foundation wall. So this block was probably laid when the house was built originally. And I have no idea yet how it aligns with the rest of the foundation going toward the river. Sorry for the diagonal. Going toward the river. So I still have to do some measurement for that using my laser. That is likely original. I don't know when this crap was laid. This is 8-inch wide block. This may have been put in 95. It was very loosely cemented in. You can see how much gap there is. It's supposed to be 3/8 of an inch with mortar between them, but clearly, and it's clearly not level. Right now, this is the new sewer drain pipe coming from the upstairs of the master bath, and that is to be joined into here after we have the pressure testing. So I'm going to have to dig out a bunch of this dirt so that I can get back under here, or put in a trap door or whatever. But I'm going to have to dig something out so that I can reconnect this after the pressure test, after the final plumbing pressure test. So clearly, this block here, there's enough space. So those blocks right there came out of this area. So I can use one of those blocks and replace this broken one here. But I'll leave the others here because I'm going to fill everything with concrete. Basically, my strategy is to take a 2x8 and put it up against these blocks. These are 8-inch blocks here. Put it up against these blocks and have a similar thing on the outside, whether it's a 2x8 or OSB or whatever. But the top of that will be even with the new bottom of the sill plate, which is going to be even with that guy. If I put a level on here, certainly the top of these blocks is not level or straight. So when he's level, we're about 3 or 4 inches off the top of the block here. So I'm going to bust out some of these webs here, the top, very top of them, so that I can lay a rebar in there. And I'll put some rebar going down the holes, in addition to L bolts to secure the new sill plate down. And we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I can get this done today. And maybe spend tomorrow digging out and then mounting the joists off of hangers here, and then of course resting on the sill here. I also still need to determine how level well, I'll be making it level, certainly, but how level it is from here over to the top of the sill plate right there. I also have to replace this joist because the siding actually was between the end of the joist and the band board here. So I'm going to cut a new joist eventually after I put all the other joists in. I'll cut a new joist and secure that properly to the band board once I remove this part of the floor and can nail in the other side. But right now, just the styrofoam is attached to the bottom of that, so it's not going to be hard. In fact, it's falling down because it's not attached to anything. This plywood is all that's holding up this frame joist right now. And there was a little bit of leakage from my junction at the back of the water washer, so I've got to let that dry out before I seal it up, which of course will be weeks or a month away. Anyway, that's where we're at. Time to get cracking. All right, folks, so I think I'm done with the form. Well, actually, there's a little bit to do over here in the corner, but a little piece of wood to keep stuff, and I gotta plug this up. Anyway, so I'll cover that up. And then there's another piece over here in the corner that needs to be put on there to finish it up. But so I've got all the rebar in. I've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 of the rebar go into epoxy in the footer. And then I've got multiple little pieces that are just sticking down about 15 inches. They're about 14 or 15 inches long, and they're tied to the horizontal bar, but that's not the right way to join them. I'm just attaching it to the rebar to suspend it, so it's not sitting in the bottom of the hole. That's all. The point of these little pieces here is just to unite the top and bottom block. And then, so this rebar goes into epoxy. This one doesn't. It just goes down into the hole. And then I've marked a pencil mark where I want to put these anchors. So because I need to clamp these two together, I'm not going to try and somehow fit the joist on here, the sill plate on here while the concrete's wet. I'll just put the anchors in at these marks where I know they're not going to interfere with the 16-inch on center joists. And then, like here, I have to put it all the way to the left of that bay there, that hole. This one goes down into epoxy. And this one does also. And that one does too. So there's multiple epoxies into the footer, multiple shorter pieces that just unite the top and bottom rows together. And then, of course, this is all going to be filled. So these are all level. You can get an idea of how off the top of this was from being level with the bottom of that sill plate over there. So yeah, I got 20 bags of concrete, and that's obviously way more than I'll need for this, but I've got lots of other concrete to use. So lots of other things to do with the concrete. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I think I'm gonna call it a day and go get some dinner. See you. Well, so the SD card filled up and it stopped recording. So sorry I didn't record all the rest of the pouring, but it's really not rocket science. So I had to obviously make some soupy mixtures in order to really get down into the smaller cavities between the blocks, and in the blocks overlap, and so the holes going from cavity to cavity aren't very big. But I jammed a stick down into the cavities to make sure that things were kind of full. I went and filled up these. I had a little bit extra, so I filled up this cavity most of the way, all the way down, and same with that one over there. And yeah, no, it turned out all right. So we'll let this set up. While this is set up, I think I'll start digging out some of the dirt from this crawl space so that I can get in here and work around here easier when I need to hook up this plumbing. And yeah, so this is clearly going to end up going away and just continue the crawl space. When I do this crawl space, it has to be deeper because the footers are actually going to be significantly deeper than these. Well, they're going down 24 inches below grade. So the requirement is that that we have new crawl spaces are 24 inches down. And yeah, and that if it's 20, I guess if it's 24 or less, or if it's less than 24 inches crawl space, the joists have to be pressure treated. I'm putting in pressure treated no matter what. Certainly here, even in there, any new joists I put in on the first floor are all pressure treated. So we'll get cracking. So that's all the digging I need to do in here. So this is a 24-inch below the bottom of the joist level. Actually, it's a little more, a couple inches more. So that'll give me a foot above and a foot below that pipe, so that I can put in the what do you call it, sanitary tee. Once the rest of the drain plumbing passes pressure test. So I've been taking this dirt out. I'm removing maybe a little less than a foot, I guess. And I'm putting it in various cavities in the yard. The depression next to between us and our neighbor. He gave me permission to take some of my fill dirt and try to fill in that a little bit. So that's a good place to put it. And this... it's just a really mushy clay. Not good for anything. But, yeah. So that's where we're at so far on the porch. All right, folks. So I'm preparing to measure for this sill plate. Step one is to make sure I understand where these bolts reside with respect to a straight line going down the side of the house, because I want to measure off of the bolts to that straight line that determines bolt location in the sill plate. So my initial measurement, putting a block of wood there and tying a string about 3.5 inches off the foundation, from there down to that corner, initially showed me I was off by 1 inch, because if I make the same distance there and there, and then I take a measurement here, which is the end of the 95 foundation, that was in 1 inch. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. So anyway, so I measured from the other side of the house, from the cinder block wall on the other side of the house to the outside of this plywood here, which is 1/2 inch farther than the foundation. So that measured 32.5 inches within 1/8 of an inch. So it's really close. And then I did the same thing from the other side. 32 feet over is basically right at the corner of that deck, and then come over another 4 inches. And I'm over 3.5 inches down there because I have plywood on top of the foundation. This point right here to the concrete, to the string, is actually right on 4 inches. This is 4.5 inches. So that means that this wall, this end of this wall, is 1/2 inch closer to the other side of the house than that and that. Because we're putting in 2-inch exterior rigid insulation on top of the sheathing, the foundation straightness really is less important than the straightness of the exterior wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the difference and bring this end of the sill out 1/4 inch. And then when I frame the wall on top of the sheathing for the floor, I'm going to make it so that new framing is going to start somewhere in here. So I've got, 4 to 6 feet of new wall plus all of this new wall, and I can make sure that that is straight as it can be. And that will eliminate some of the variation in the side of the house being wavy going down. So it'll make this side the same distance to the other side of the house. This side will be within 1/4 inch, maybe even 1/8 of an inch. And that is way closer than I'm sure a lot of crappy builders would do. So we'll see how it goes. All right, folks. So we got the framing done, at least tacked in place. I've got 3-inch screws on the outside, 2 for each joist, but I need to go through and do a 3-inch nailing of all the points. I did replace that joist right there. That was kind of a pain in the butt. I had to jack up that post with a bottle jack and shoved this joist all the way in. This is a 13-foot long joist, and I'll go out and show you that in a second. But I got all the joist hangers in here for these guys, and yeah, so next week I'll start dealing with this. Once I nail these guys, that's the structure is done. All I'd have to come back do is plumbing, and I don't think I do any electrical. Yeah, just plumbing for the supply, hot and cold, going up to the second floor. That's really all that needs to go up, and then maybe a drain or two. I don't know. Well, think about that. But yeah, then when I do the plumbing, of course, I have to disconnect this line here because that's not a permanent part of the plumbing. All right, so out here, this this rim joist goes all the way under the door. This is the piece I took out under the door. Pretty rotten here. Excuse the bright sunlight. But the rear of it wasn't completely horrible. But this end, of course, was all jacked up. And that this water damage is because they didn't tape under the door at all. There was no tape whatsoever. No flashing. Except that little bit of flashing under there that just went around a little piece of wood, and then of course the siding just backed up to it. So pretty bad. So yeah, got good wood for this joist here. You notice the end of this sill plate sticks out about 1/2 inch or 3/8. That is actually more parallel to the other side of the house than the sill plate next to it going toward the river. And then this rim joist is basically just kind of splitting the difference. So when I put sheathing on there and then 2-inch rigid insulation and then siding, you'll never know that there was a level change. It'll be pretty darn flat. So that's what I was aiming for. So it's all good. Anyway, see you next week.